So we're in one of Jean-Marc's vineyards today. We're talking all things organic. So any questions you may have on organic farming. And we're actually down here in one of Jean-Marc's biggest vineyards called Rocaille. I just want to check him as he drives along rather quickly on my little Diane. This is an event. Hi Uncle Ted up there in Broadbottom, just in time to catch up with Jean-Marc here, getting out of the Diane. Ah ben ça a démarré alors. Bonjour Jean-Marc. Ça va? Ouais. Je vais enlever ça. Sorry, take this out. Morning. Did you have a nice trip in the Diane? Yeah. Okay. Donc je viens de commencer. Je vais juste montrer où je suis pour l'instant. Ouais. So I just give you the. Right. Oh right. We've got to get out of the way because we're doing organic muck spreading this morning. So we need to get everything out of the way as Michelle comes down because it's going to smell. So let me just show you where we are. So if I start here behind the Diane, that you can just make out the snow-capped mountains of the Canigou. So rising to 3,000 meters, lots of snow over there on the Canigou and over into the Roussillon. So in the Roussillon. And then panning around here, you just make out behind Jean-Marc the village of Paziol, just on the border of the Roussillon. Paziol 6 kilometers that way. 6 kilometers from the border of Roussillon. And then turning around here, there's a little bank because there's a little river on the other side, which is dry at the moment. But you can see this is a wild boar path up over the bank. And there's some reeds, bit of grass, some wild fennel here. It's winter, so it's all a bit dry. But panning around here, behind here, oh, here you can see the reeds. Not bamboo, just before somebody tells me it's not bamboo, reeds. And behind that we've got the Aguila Castle, and then panning around we have the Montoche here, just the sun on the Montoche, absolutely lovely. And here we have to stand back a bit, we've got Michelle, morning Michelle, on the tractor, and we're going to be looking at what is coming out of the back of that tractor in a minute with Jean-Marc. But I just thought we'd have a morning talking about organic farming because I'm actually doing a virtual wine fair in Montpellier at the moment. So normally every year at this time there's Millésine Bio, and Millésine Bio goes for 3 days and it's for all producers of organic wine in the whole world. In the whole world. Yeah. Can come down onto Montpellier and do a 3-day fair. So obviously it's a trades fair. Obviously it wasn't possible this year because of the COVID. So they decided to try out for the first time ever a virtual wine fair. So yesterday from my desk I have a little stand that I've created on the internet. So every exhibitor has a stand and we've put little videos up there, tasting notes. Oh, it smells. It's that song. Tasting notes up there, and we've had visitors from Germany and France, and it's gone quite well considering that you can't actually taste the wine. But then that got us thinking today, let's have a look at organic, as it's an organic wine fair. And I've got Jean-Marc here because he was going to just explain why he decided to turn organic and why his vineyards are organic as mine are as well. He's just keeping his beady eye on Michelle. Ça va, Michel? Ouais, ça marche. Oh, he thinks Michelle's gone up the wrong. It's a grave, the wrong row. Doesn't really matter there. Donc, Jean-Marc, if anybody has any questions for Jean-Marc, we can put them in the box at the bottom. But Jean-Marc, pourquoi en fait tu as décidé de passer en bio? So just asking Jean-Marc why he decided to turn to organic. Okay, a word for you. Organic in French is biologique, shortened to bio. Really simple word, B-I-O. Bio is organic. So pourquoi t'es passé en bio, Jean-Marc?
I see. I don't decide just in 1 year because I do slowly, using less and less chemical, and I use chemical, but after a lot of years, je voulais plus.
Yeah, you just didn't really want to use chemicals. You felt it wasn't right.
First for me.
For your health, yeah.
And I think if it's not very good for me, it's not very good for the consumer.
Yeah, so you think that
d'avoir des résidus.
To have, if there's any residue, you felt it wasn't good for you using chemicals, and you had some friends as well.
Yes, I have 2 friends. I do part of my study in lycée agricole.
So you went to agricultural college for your studies.
And 2 friends who was in this college with me are dead with chemical.
So unfortunately, I had 2 friends that actually died from chemical poisoning, you think, from the vineyards and the products they were using. So that made Jean-Marc think that he would, for his own health and the health of the workers and the health of consumers, so there's no residue in the wines, that you would turn to organic or bio.
Yeah. Pour utiliser que des produits naturels et qui n'ont pas d'incidence sur la santé.
So we only use natural products to treat the vines, and they have no effect, or they have an effect, but they have no consequences on the soil or on people's health.
Donc, ce sont les principales raisons. Et ensuite, je pense que si on utilise des produits naturels, on redonne de la vie dans les sols. Et donc, ça doit favoriser l'expression du terrain et du terroir.
So Jean-Marc thinks that also if you use natural products, then you just have natural products in the soil, and that must help with the expression of the terroir and the soil and the wine, and that is found in the wine. And I think this question is, et tu penses que c'est la meilleure qualité le vin, ou c'est... Do you think it's a better quality of wine now that you're organic?
Je pense qu'on est allé progressivement vers le bio. Et au niveau des sols, plus ton sol est vivant, plus ça doit exprimer le terroir. Après, il y a un risque, c'est que si on ne traite pas correctement les raisins, si les raisins ne sont pas jolis, ça risque d'altérer la qualité. Donc il faut être plus vigilant sur la qualité des traitements.
Jean-Marc says that on the quality of the wine, you have to be really careful with organic agriculture, because using organic farming organically, you can only treat the vines as a preventive measure. So you can't, if you have, say, mildew or odium, once you've got it, you can't go out and cure it if you're in organic agriculture, because you can only use sulfur or copper sulfate, and they are preventative, I can't get that word right, preventative measures rather than curative. And that means that you really have to be looking at your vines a lot more, and you have to be looking for the diseases to see if they're there, and get out there and treat them if you've got the first signs of it. So Jean-Marc says in terms of quality, sometimes it can have the adverse effect with wines, that if you're not very vigilant with farming and looking at your vineyards, you may get, for example, an outcrop of mildew that you don't want, which will then have a negative effect on the quality. But generally, using natural products and ploughing. I think ploughing, you can see the soils here, well, they're very stony, but they've all been ploughed, they've been aerated, and they're sort of, this sounds a bit silly, but they're sort of happy soils. So they're soils that are living, they have lots more. Tu as remarqué qu'il y a plus de vers de terre, peut-être. So there's more worms in the soil, there's more biodiversity, and that must help the terroir to express itself, and that must be found in the wine. So here's Michel. It really smells here, just so you know, because Michel is spreading organic fertilizer. Il y a quoi dans le...
Voilà, ce sont des engrais qui sont compostés.
Oui.
Et il y a un mélange de beaucoup de végétaux différents.
So it's vegetable matter compost.
Donc il y a par exemple des tourteaux de café, des pulpes d'olive.
So there's olive pulp, there's coffee, the bits that go around the coffee grains, coffee husks.
Il y a des végétaux broyés comme des sarments, il y a de la sciure, y a un peu
So there's like sawdust, there's the branches of sarmon that come off the vines, all mulched up into
il y a
these
un peu de
pallets.
fumier, un peu
It
de guano.
smells like there's a bit of fumier. Here's another word for you. Fumier is manure. Fumier, fumier, F-U-M-I-E-R, fumier is manure. It also means to smoke. Fumer is to smoke. So if you imagine a big pile of smoking manure, then that will help you remember the word for fumier. So, fumier. I forgot what you were saying now. So there's a little bit of manure. It smells like it's all made 100% from manure. It absolutely stinks. And Mum and Dad, if you're there sitting on the sofa, remember we went to Maury and we did this by hand and we absolutely stank. We had our little cups and we just sort of like feeding chickens, spread it around 2.5 hectares. Must be about 10 years ago now we did that. So if you have any questions, please put them in the little box at the bottom of the screen. You see there's a little question mark, and let's have a look. So Brad says, hi Brad, really good to see you. He says, what's in the spray? So we just, est-ce qu'il y a un peu, tu les vois ceux qui sortent là, là il y en a par terre. We're just looking to see if we can show you. They're actually pellets, so it's not a spray. They're like little black pellets. They look a bit, oh, some birds just swooped down. So they're little black pellets. Attention que c'est pas les crottes de mouton.
Il doit y en avoir des crottes.
Il y en a des crottes de mouton. Yeah, we've also said don't mix it up with the sheep droppings because this is the vineyard where the Fanny's sheep were in here last week, and you can see not the remains of Fanny's sheep, but you can see the bits of Fanny's sheep, some wool. So might start to tricoter un pull. So, a nice bit of wool, a wool lining for Jean-Marc. Je peux te tricoter un truc.
Ouais.
So, this is a vineyard where we had Fanny's sheep in here, and Jean-Marc's just making sure it doesn't pick up sheep droppings rather than the organic manure. Well, I suppose it's pretty much the same thing. Pallets here. T'en as trouvé? And here,
ça c'est ce qu'on vient de mettre.
Oui, et dans ta... Tu as dans ta...
Ouais.
So here are Brad and everybody. You can see all the ramblers. These are the pellets that are coming out of the back of Michel's tractor from the trailer and being sprayed out. So they're made of compost, vegetal compost, and a little bit of manure. Et tu sais la dose que tu mets par hectare?
Oui.
Ou...
Là, actuellement, on épange environ 1 tonne par hectare.
So we're spreading about 1 tonne per hectare. C'est beaucoup, pas beaucoup?
C'est une dose, on va dire, normale par rapport aux besoins d'alimentation de la vigne.
So it's a normal amount given the needs of the vineyard.
Parce que le but, c'est d'équilibrer la production, de ne pas avoir des excès de vigueur, de ne pas non plus être trop...
Yeah, because we don't want the vines to suddenly get too vigorous. So it's always a gentle balance of in the vineyards of how much manure you actually add on to the vines, how much fertilizer, because we don't want over vigorous vines, we don't want enormous yields, we want to keep those quite low. So 1 tonne per hectare is a relatively low amount, average amount.
C'est la dose équilibrée. On a fait des analyses de sol et les préconisations.
So if you remember, we did those soil analysis, and it was actually the advice from after those soil analysis which has said this is what you need 1 tonne per hectare in this particular vineyard. We won't be putting the same amount in every vineyard, but if you look here, just look at the stones. I mean, you can't even see soil here. So it's mainly it's mainly stones, and so does need a little bit of fertilizer. We just touched on organic as well, before I come to your question, Steve, que c'est quand même beaucoup plus cher, hein? On en parlait ce matin, que ça prend plus de temps.
Oui,
et,
on a beaucoup plus de main-d'œuvre.
Yeah, so just on the cost of doing organic viticulture as well, we were working it out this morning over breakfast that it's so labour intensive compared to conventional farming. So to give you an example, on weed killing or herbicides, in conventional farming, you would have gone out before and sprayed perhaps once, maximum twice on the tractor with Roundup or equivalent. When you're doing organic farming, obviously don't use that, and you need to plough. So the way to get weed control in organic farming is through ploughing or strimming. And you would go into a vineyard, especially the old vines, you would have to plough probably 4 times a year. So that's already 4 times as much work as conventional farming. That's just to plough. You then have to go back in with a strimmer and actually plough between the rows. So that would take a full day to go out on top of having ploughed already. So you go out with a strimmer to strim down the weeds in between the vines as well. This is in the old vines. In my vines with a chenille. In this vine here, it's a little bit quicker because Jean-Marc can get his normal tractor in and he can get the plough on the back, and he can also get what is called an intercept plough on the back as well, which actually ploughs or cuts the grass between. L'intercept, ça labore ou ça coupe l'herbe?
C'est une lame qui passe entre...
The intercept is actually a blade which goes between the vines and cuts that, ça coupe, and that cuts down the weeds. So he can do it more mechanically, so less labour intensive in Jean-Marc's younger vines that are planted at the correct distance for a modern day tractor. Mine, old vines, are a lot more complicated, but I'm rambling as usual. So Steve, good to see you. I've loved the photos of your olive trees down there and hope the damage isn't too great after the snow. So do the surrounding vineyards practice organics, and if they don't, does that affect your organic status? Donc Steve, il demande si les vignes à côté ils sont bio aussi, et s'ils ne sont pas en bio, est-ce que ça gêne toi dans la certification ou dans le travail bio de tes vignes?
C'est contrôlé, parce qu'il y a des organismes qui contrôlent.
So it is controlled, Steve. We are with the EcoCert, is the auditing body we have, so everything's very controlled.
Et certaines fois, mettons par exemple ici, on a les parcelles, il y a 4 hectares qui sont...
So here, for example, we've got 4 hectares.
Et en bout, il y a un chemin qui entoure la parcelle.
And at the end, there's qui fait 2 mètres, 3 mètres?
Oh, oui, plus.
Plus 5 mètres.
4 ou 5 mètres. Ouais.
So and surrounding the whole 4 hectares, there is a 4-meter wide path going around the vineyard.
Là, ça ne pose pas de problème.
So no, to answer your question, it isn't a problem in this particular vineyard.
Et par contre, si tu as des vignes qui sont juste à proximité, on peut laisser 2 rangs qui ne seront pas vinifiés en bio.
But for example, if you were much closer to somebody else's vineyards and he wasn't in organic, so for example, if just looking down here, if you had if on the left they weren't organic, on the right they are, then you would, or the auditing body would exclude the first 2 or 3 rows from production, because they would say that it could be affected. The other thing as well that Jean-Marc mentioned about that is because we don't, if you're farming, even conventional farming, you don't go out if it's windy. Donc même si quelqu'un traite, c'est assez précis quand même sur la parcelle.
Normalement, il y a très peu de dérives, parce que les appareils peuvent localiser la pulvérisation. Il peut y avoir des dérives.
So just to say, Jean-Marc says that there's very little, like if a farmer's spraying his vineyards, then he will do the maximum to get the spray onto his vineyard and not put it on somebody else's. So there's very small amount of dérive, spray that can...
You can have
but, you know, if there's a small amount of wind, you could get that wind could bring the spray onto your vineyards, but it is uncommon because people just don't tend to go out in the vineyards when it's windy, and as I said, they don't want to spray your vineyards, they want to spray theirs. So yeah, all very controlled by EcoCert. We're talking about that as well. We work with EcoCert, and EcoCert we have to pay, just on the cost side, Michelle's gone, we have to pay €500 a year to be audited and controlled, and they controlled
They control la vigne, la vinification.
They control the vineyard, everything basically. So they control from the vineyard, traceability from the vineyard, the vinification and the bottling. So we have 2 domains. I'm also in organic, but I'm going to be certified this year because you have a 3-year conversion period. I'm coming to the end of that. So the 21 harvest at Domaine Jones is also going to be certified organic. We already work organically, but it will be certified. So everything's controlled. Vineyard, bottling, vinification, other way around. And it's controlled by EcoCert, who come and audit the traceability of the wine. We've lost Michelle. Okay, a question from Mimi up here in Sweden. Hi Mimi, it's really good to see you. You never spray in the fall, donc tu ne traites jamais à l'automne.
L'automne,
thinking about
maybe
that
next year.
Oh, I was going to say, of course not, because there's no leaves, there's nothing that we can treat.
No,
but
when they are leave, just after the harvest.
Yeah.
And next year, maybe I won't try to...
Oh, so Jean-Marc's going to be trying something new next year, just after the harvest.
Pour aider la vigne à faire des réserves.
To help the vine with its natural reserves and to strengthen the vine naturally. He's going to spray something. I didn't know this.
Pour la fructification l'année d'après.
And that's going to help the vine for the following year.
I never do, but
he's never done it
I
yet.
know just after the harvest, there are a lot of work in the winery.
Yeah,
because for the next year, I want to try to...
Okay, great question. So he wants to try and do that next year. It's going to strengthen the vine if you spray... Et tu sais ce que c'est que tu mets sur la vigne?
En fait, on va amener des oligo-éléments et des éléments fertilisants pour que la vigne mette en réserve davantage.
So we bring it natural...
des oligo-éléments principalement.
Oligo elements to strengthen the vine naturally. A question from Adam. Thanks for this, Adam. Est-ce que la plupart des autres producteurs dans le local font du bio aussi?
Non, sur le village, non.
Not in the village.
Mais le Languedoc est globalement une des régions, c'est la région en France où il y a le plus de bio.
But Languedoc is the area in France that has the most organic wine farming. There's lots of questions there here, but we say that in the cooperative they're not certified as organic, but I think they are in the environmental, environnemental, peut-être à la cave.
Il y a des démarches haute valeur HVE, haute valeur environnementale, c'est pas bio. Il y a beaucoup de...
So they do have some certification at the co-op for environmentally friendly practices, but not fully organic. Oops. Just move away. I just show you this view as Jean-Marc blows his nose this morning. Hi Adam, good to see you. We're in full discussion about organic farming because I'm actually doing a virtual organic wine fair at the moment called Millésime Bio from my desk in, I'm actually, meant to be in Montpellier. So a question here from Simon. Quand est-ce que les vignes ils vont manger ce que tu viens de mettre?
En fait,
est-ce qu'il dort encore maintenant?
En fait, la vigne, quand elle commence au printemps à faire des bourgeons, elle tire sur les réserves qu'elle a fait.
So when it starts with the buds in the spring, it's going to use the reserves that it's built up.
Et en fait, c'est plutôt en fin de printemps ou début d'été qu'elle va utiliser la matière qu'on vient d'apporter.
So it will be en fin de printemps. So probably it's going... Donc ça va pas aller dans la plante jusqu'à fin de printemps. Ouais, okay. So probably late spring, beginning of the summer is when this fertilizer we're putting on will actually be taken up by the vines and used by the vines because it needs to bud, so it needs lots of energy to bud.
Quand la vigne commence au printemps, au mois de avril, fin mars à avril, quand elle va commencer à forcer, donc elle va utiliser les réserves qu'elle a fait dans son bois, l'amidon qu'elle a fait.
Ouais. Donc les réserves sont déjà faites avec le...
Donc quand elle va commencer à forcer, elle n'utilise pas ce qu'on met dans le sol. C'est avec ses propres réserves qu'elle va fonctionner.
Qu'elle a fait avec ce qu'on met sur le...
Pas maintenant, ce qu'elle a amassé après les vendanges.
So this is for next year.
C'est pour la fin.
I think I should have asked this question, not on the live. Yeah.
Voilà.
Vas-y, non, j'aurais dû le poser. Vas-y.
Au printemps.
Okay, start again. Are you with us still, Simon? So, in the spring,
quand elle va commencer à forcer les bourgeons, quand elle va commencer à pousser,
when the vine's going to start to make buds in the spring, start to bud in the spring,
la vigne va
this spring,
utiliser les réserves qu'elle a fait après les vendanges.
the vine's going to use the reserves that it's made following the harvest. So harvest, the vine makes reserves, it goes dormant, it wakes up, it buds, and it uses those reserves for the budding and the leaves.
Et après, elle va utiliser ce qu'elle trouve dans le sol, plutôt en fin de printemps.
And then it's going to use what it finds in the soil more towards the end of the spring.
Et ensuite pour faire les réserves pour l'année d'après.
And then to build up the reserves for the following year.
Voilà.
Ha! There you go. Great question. Thanks very much for that, Simon. Merci. And coming to the end of the questions, bundle of Melody Joy. Great to see you. Is this slow release because of the pellet form? Ouais, elle demande, est-ce que ce temps que ça prend pour l'engrais c'est parce que c'est des petits, c'est the pellets, les morceaux que tu as montrés, est-ce que c'est en forme de relâchement retardatif du fumier?
Non, c'est parce que disons qu'il y a le temps pour que la matière active, pour que la matière organique se rende disponible dans le sol et que la vigne en ait besoin. Donc il y a un certain temps pour que cette matière active. Mais après, ça se dissout facilement.
So no, they're not sort of late release pellets. They actually will dissolve now into the soil, but then it takes a while for the vines to actually pick up what is in the soil and to put it into their energy reserve.
Le fait que ce soit une sorte de bouchon comme ça, c'est pour que ce soit plus facile à épandre. Parce que si c'est de la poudre, dès qu'il y a un peu de vent, ça...
And actually the shape of those pellets is so that it's much easier to get onto the vineyard. So much easier to get onto the vineyard because if it's windy, you can still use it. If it was a fine powder, it would go everywhere. So it's just to make it easier to use, and especially for us if it's windy. So fantastic. I think... A final question from Cam. Good to see you, Cam. With ploughing, do you take out any of the stones? Donc, quand on laboure, est-ce que ça enlève les cailloux? No. Unfortunately not, Cam, I'm afraid. It actually makes it worse. Ça le rend plus compliqué, plus difficile.
C'est à la main.
The only way to get rid of them is by hand.
Quand les cailloux sont petits, ce n'est pas gênant pour pouvoir travailler le sol. C'est lorsqu'il y a des cailloux un peu trop gros.
Yeah, so this isn't a problem to work the soils. These are quite small size stones, so we can actually plough around them. The problem is when you get a big one, and they do come to the surface quite regularly, then you have to stop, try and get it out, or it can actually break the teeth on your plough too if you have a big one. And then just one final question. Everybody's off now because we've gone way over time. It's past. I mean, it's 9 o'clock already. One last question from Warren here. Est-ce qu'on a des projets pour le biodynamie? Donc, on va pas répondre maintenant, on va répondre jeudi, je pense. Qu'est-ce que tu en penses? Okay, excellent. So Warren asked any plans for biodynamic, and we thought we'd carry along this theme on Thursday. So we will be answering that question, Warren, on Thursday, along with what is a vegan wine. So if you join us on Thursday, because of this wonderful virtual wine fair that's happening at the moment, if you're in the trade, you can sign up to Millésime Bio. It's today and the last day is tomorrow, and we can have a little virtual meeting, and I can virtually let you taste the wine. So it's Jean-Marc's Herbarium range of wines that we're showing that come from this vineyard here. And just one final look at this amazing view. The sun has come up. Look at that. The sun just rising above the bank where the wild boar are. Bye, Diane. See you later. T'as mis de l'essence?
Non.
Non. Tu veux que moi je conduise la Diane?
Ça m'est égal. Je repars avec...
D'accord. The Diane here. Jean-Marc's off. Getting back in the Diane. See you later, Jean-Marc. Merci beaucoup. Bye. And then one last look at the Canigou, snow-capped mountains.